Hello and welcome to the IRS Rail webinar session on restoring passenger confidence in rail, the power of demand management, produced by the International Railway Summit in association with Veovo. I'm Joel Somura, the Managing Director of Virus Events, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session. So at the last count, we had over 180 people from 41 countries registered for today. Welcome to those of you attending our webinar program for the first time, and welcome back if you've joined us before. How to restore passenger confidence remains the single biggest concern for rail and public transport operators, according to a network of sector leaders. Last year was the year of panic and quick fixes for many operators. This year, after trial and error and sharing of best practices and data across operators and authorities, we have a better understanding of what works and what doesn't. Operators are faced with dilemma between the social distancing requirements and the commercial need to increase passenger numbers. One solution is to manage the demand so that the morning and afternoon peaks are eased and passengers are more spread out throughout the day and throughout the transport system. So how can we manage passenger demand? This will be the topic for today's debate. I'm delighted to have the support of leading opinion makers and innovators as speakers with us today. In particular, we are grateful for the support from Veovo for the second time, which allows us to provide this important debate for anyone to watch for free. Veovo is a leading expert in transport passenger flow management. Many of the world's key airports and now also a growing number of train stations rely on Veovo to monitor, analyze, and predict passenger flow. Before COVID, their solutions were already vital in creating better passenger experience, minimizing delays, easing pressure at peak times, and increasing retail revenue. But during the pandemic, you can imagine how crucial their solutions have become for maintaining social distancing, avoiding bottlenecks, and nudging passengers to behave in certain ways. So I look forward to learning about Veovo's data-driven and AI-powered approach from their General Manager, Peter Knudsen, shortly. I'm equally grateful to Juan Tebar from Madrid Metro, Marc Guigon from UIC, the International Union of Railways, and Frank Ibe from Transport for London for sharing their expertise with us today. This is an interactive session. You're invited to participate proactively in this discussion. So the audience members can see the chat screen to your right of the screen. You're welcome to provide some comments there or say hello to other attendees, etc. So do make use of that. There will be a Q&A section next to the chat, so you can ask questions, and Carsten will pick up as many of those questions as possible during the panel discussion. You can also vote for other people's questions, and so the more popular questions will be are more likely to be picked up by Carsten. We'll be running a couple of polls today, so do look out for that, and it's your chance to voice your opinion during this session. And handouts, there's a handout section where you can download the speakers' presentations as well. So do make use of these features. And right at the end of the webinar, after the session's finished, there will be a evaluation form that you will see, or if you will also get the evaluation form via email after the session. We'll be grateful for your feedback on the session. So do share your experience with us. We are tweeting live during this webinar. You can follow us at Rail Summit, and please use our hashtag IRS Rail Webinars. If you enjoy the session, do continue the debate on Twitter and LinkedIn. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our guide for today, Dr. Carsten Lotz. Carsten is a partner at McKinsey & Company, and he leads their global transport infrastructure work. Within the transport sector, Carsten specializes in rail, and he's, and I quote, deeply committed to advancing the railway industry, unquote, because of its environmental credentials. As early as June last year, Carsten co-authored an article on restoring public transit amid COVID-19, what European cities can learn from one another, where he introduced best practices from various European countries and cities on how to prepare for a possible spike in passenger numbers post-lockdown. So Carsten is certainly well qualified for today's debate on restoring passenger confidence in rail, the power of demand management. So Carsten, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Jules. Thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to moderate this debate with those four people who are probably way more qualified than I am, who's from the external world trying to consult and to help and to think through certain challenges. I'm looking forward to our discussion. What our clients have been telling us over the last year is indeed what you mentioned, Jules. It was a lot of firefighting, and now there's a lot of uncertainty going forward in terms of what will be the overall volume of demand, what will be the nature of demand. We already see that certain areas, more industrial areas, are coming back more or less on the same level as before. On the other hand, business districts see still empty trains and metros. So I'm really looking forward to hear your perspectives today. From all of you, two people from two cities, from metros, a solution provider, and from UIC, the more long-distance, high-speed perspective. I think it's going to be an interesting debate. It's going to be an important debate, given what all those states now have committed on sustainability in the future, on economic relaunch. I think we all know that we are dependent on public transport, on rail especially. People like me, people like you, we could afford private transport. If we want to have inclusive, sustainable transport for the future, we need rail. So I'm really looking forward to hear your perspectives, how we restore confidence and how we can use demand management to do so. Let me now introduce firstly Juan, who is Director of Rail Operations of the Madrid Metro. Juan has almost 20 years of experience in the railway sector, and he's currently overseeing a team to implement best service and highest standards for safety and technical expertise in Madrid. Before, he served ADIF, the Spanish infrastructure manager, especially the high-speed railway network. And I've seen that he shares a common, I wouldn't say hobby, so for him it's way more, but a common interest of us is tunneling. I had the pleasure to work on a very big infrastructure project near my hometown, Stuttgart, with lots of tunnels. We're not talking about tunnels today, but we're probably talking about how we get through this tunnel that we had over the last 18 months, and we appear in the open daylight with new confidence. Juan, the floor is yours. I'm looking forward to your remarks.
Good afternoon, Carsten. It's a pleasure to be here today. I will speak about rebuilding passenger trust, managing demand during and after the COVID-19 pandemic from the Metro de Madrid experience. Today, we will talk about Metro de Madrid, COVID-19, and how the pandemic has impacted us as well as what we think the future will bring. First of all, let's introduce ourselves. Metro de Madrid has over 7,000 employees, more than 300 stations, almost 300 kilometers, and 2,400 cars, with an annual ridership of 677.4 million journeys and 2.5 million passengers per day in 2019. And then COVID-19 arrived and a contingency plan was put in place. The service was provided according to the requirements of the authorities, maximum of 3 passengers per square meter, increasing cleaning and technical modifications such as the automatic door opening. We also increased signage, including vinyl flooring, seats or doors, to enforce interpersonal distancing, as well as improvements in the app to increase information provided to the users. We believe information is the key, reinforcing the message and ensuring our passengers are aware of the situation. Within our stations and depots, we reviewed our cleaning consistencies and cleaning products, increasing our annual cost by 7 million euros, as well as establishing procedures for reporting COVID-19 cases to ensure that the virus spread was monitored. Our trains were disinfected daily with virucidal products, protective products with antimicrobial properties were applied on most use areas. During 2020, more than 70,000 cleaning operations were performed on our fleet, increasing our annual cost by 5.5 million euros. And so we started living the new normality. As of May 4th, 2020, the masks were mandatory and the Madrid population started to experience changes on their daily routines. Metro de Madrid operating hours returned to normal, as well as the reopening of all accesses and customer service centers. We also took care of our employees, testing 7,000 employees for COVID-19 and supplying hydroalcoholic gel and masks. All this had a cost. The COVID-19 economic impact was important. Our cost associated to COVID-19 went up to 22 million euros, while our income decreased by 37 million euros, of course. Despite the economic situation, alternatives were sought because the public transport must be the engine of the economic recovery. Our demand took a deep plunge. In this figure, you can see depicted in orange the 2019 daily demand versus the COVID pandemic demand from March 2020 to June 2021, depicted in blue. The blue line shows how in March 10th, 2020, there was a general lockout in Spain trying to stop the spread of the virus. So the public transport fell down to almost zero. Our minimum was 69,491 journeys on April 5th, 2020. After the lockout was finished, the ridership started increasing to 1 million journeys, and we were expecting after summer 2020 it would have increased to 75% of the 2019 daily demand. However, the second wave came, then our demand didn't continue growing and remained on 56%. During 2021, our demand is slowly recovering with a positive trend, increasing 1% every 2 weeks. We are currently at 67% of the 2019 demand, and we are expecting to reach an 80% recovery by the end of the year. Looking at it from a journey's perspective, 2020 took us back 3 years by losing 328 million journeys. We are expecting to recover 100 million journeys on 2021 and continue to grow on the following years. In order to manage demand, carefully planning the operation is needed to ensure compliance with the sanitary restrictions and interpersonal space, adapting operation to increase service offer despite loss of demand, and trying to modify customers' traveling routines. For this, we have developed new functionalities to automatically limit station capacity, a new technological solution gathering information from train position and turnstile entrance, provides estimates on platform density at a specific station, allowing customers to access or wait. These estimates are available on information displays, public address system, and the Metro Madrid app. Our customers can interact with Metro Madrid and gather information on the network status and the service provided. The Metro Madrid app is available both for iOS and Android operating systems and is also multilingual, including information from other transport operators, bus, light rail, or train. Specifically for managing the COVID-19 pandemic, the following functionalities were implemented. Information on the status of the selected station, they are open or closed, information on next train based on current location of user, and information on board passenger density expected. Looking into the future, we must focus on inspiring trust in uncertain times, given that public transport is essential for a sustainable, green, digital, inclusive, and social recovery from the pandemic. We will continue monitoring station and train occupancy, being transparent communication with our customers and employees, and ensuring that we will continue being the backbone of a safe mobility in large cities. Thank you for your attention. Back to you, Carsten.
Thanks a lot, Juan. This is very impressive, I must say. So I don't have the personal experience over the last 12 months of visiting different public transport systems across Europe like before. But if I compare this, what you've done with what I've monitored and what I've seen before, this is an impressive jump in technology implementation and use of technology to provide safety for passengers. So congratulations on that one. I think we're now having a poll to prepare Mark's presentation. And Jules is going to help us on that, right?
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Carsten. So if we can show the first poll, please. Yes. So the audience members, if you can respond to this question, how long time will it take to restore the confidence of travelers in rail transport? It's already restored, or it will take 1 year, it will take 2 years, or 5 years, or it will never be restored. So if you can select one of these options, in terms of your view on how long it will take to restore the passenger confidence in rail transport. And if you can let us know in the next 10-15 seconds, if you can respond to this question, how long will it take to restore the passenger confidence in rail transport?
And while we wait for your answers, let me introduce Mark, who now joins us also with his camera. And yes, maybe, I think I can do that here, right? Like this, you can see us better. Mark is the passenger director and the coordinator for the COVID-19 task force at UIC, the International Union of Railways. He's responsible for passenger activities, including the development of high-speed rail all over the world, for railway station, ticket distribution, regional and commuter train services, and tourism in trains. So a vast responsibility, which depends a lot on passenger confidence in railway in the train. You are also responsible to coordinate UIC for the Latin American region, which has specific challenges, which I had the opportunity to observe and discuss with colleagues over there. Very happy to have you here. Looking forward to your presentation. And Jules, do we have the results of our poll?
Yes. So we've got most of the people responded. If you haven't responded, if you can respond now in the next couple of seconds, and then we will close. Yeah. If we can close the poll, please. And then you can see under the polls section, if you go to polls and then closed, you will see the result there. So very close competition between 1 year and 2 years. I think 1 year is slightly higher, 39%, and 2 years, 35%. Your comments, Carsten and Mark.
That's an interesting result. We had the discussion this morning that people were coming back pretty soon after 9/11. So the memory is a short one. We have our own research done from the McKinsey Center Future of Mobility, where we looked at how would people like to travel after the pandemic. And you had a significant drop 4 weeks in March, April last year. And then we went our way back for each wave, and we're basically now at the same kind of behavior as before. So I'm pretty confident. I was more on the 1 year. I don't know, Mark, where are you on those 1 to 2 to 5 years?
Yes. So I voted 2 years myself in this poll. Thank you, Jules, for that to have given that. But I think it depends on a lot of factors. The confidence of travelers. We do not have to mix maybe the confidence and also the way of taking the trains. It is different for that. People can take the train without any confidence on the trains. Also, it could happen. If it was last week we had a webinar with UIC members from Africa, from all the continents, and they told us that for them they will resume their traffic between 2022 and 2025. it depends on the country. So it depends all around the world on the countries. For me, I think I'm not sure that in 1 year there will be restoring of confidence of the travelers. We see that now with the Delta virus. So I'm not sure that's why I've voted for 2 years. But I think never. Okay, I think there is one person who has voted for never. But okay, why not?
Great. So, Mark, the floor is yours. I think, Jules, you're bringing up the presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I will speak on how the well undertakings can have been and will also restore confidence on rail. As you said, I am also the coordinator of the UIC COVID-19 task force, and we have just launched, we have finalized a white paper on the new normal. That means a situation which is stabilized after the pandemic when one of our concurrent or competitor on that. So I will present the UIC. I think a lot of people know UIC around the table. We are the railway association in the world with 205 members in 95 countries. So I am now, as you said, responsible also for Latin America, and I will be responsible in 2 months also for the Middle East region with mainly Turkey, Iran, Jordania, Arabia Saudite, and other countries. In UIC, we are organizing. There is a poll which is arriving. I'm sorry, just now. So I will.
Okay. I'm sorry about this. If audience members, if you can answer randomly just to get rid of the screen, we'll launch again. So we'll start from fresh later on. So apologies for this.
No problem, Jules. So thank you to give me the floor back. So we are five main departments: rail system, passengers. So I'm responsible for passengers, director, freight, and fundamental values with security, safety, and others. So when we speak for restoring confidence, we need what are the dreams of the passengers. We can say the expectations, if you like. Of course, safety, security. Of course, new working habits. So you have seen everywhere in the world, not everywhere in the world. I can say that also. That there is remote working and also new online meetings. Cleanliness is important also for that. New services. We can speak about that. And which is important also is now there is individual, environmental, and social awareness concerning transport. Clear information, comfort, seamless travel, and be in control for the travel. The railway companies themselves, in order to restore confidence for their passengers, they have carried out a lot of analysis and a lot of studies. In the last UIC COVID-19 task force, there was DB, the German Railways, who has presented a study concerning lockdowns and concerning the incidents in Germany. There was also one study concerning the difference between the risk to take the car and to take the train within a pandemic, and it is more risky to take the car. Each company has set up a task force, and also if you want that the passenger will feel safe, the staff has to be to feel safe also. So they have also a lot of companies have given antigen self-checks for the operational staff. Which kind of solutions they have proposed for the customers? Of course, because it is mandatory in a lot of countries to wear masks in a public transport. with hand sanitizer dispensers in the railway stations and in the trains themselves. The self-test in some stations. There are some countries which have also set up some vaccination centers in the stations. Cleanliness is important for the passenger. If the station is dirty, the customer will not have confidence. So the staff has to show that they have they will take care of the passenger, and that's why there are a lot of people which is cleaning all the machines, all the things which can be touched by the customer. Social distancing. So I've put some images here. So on the left and upright, the social distancing in some trains which are on the upright due to the reservation of train, which are now with distance between passengers. But what could be interesting also, not to that the passenger will be afraid to take the train with that. I put an image coming from Latin America from a webinar we had last week with all the countries of Latin America and with an orchestra within the train. So we will go in that, and also the companies have highlighted the fact that the ventilation is very important in the trains. So also to make some publicity concerning that. It is what said the SNCF on the right, where everywhere there are these kind of pictograms saying that the regional trains and the high-speed trains also are safe concerning the air, and less 5 minutes to change the total air of the car. On the left side, it is coming from Japan East Railway, where they also have a lot of improvements in their car concerning ventilation. But if we need that, we need communication, of course. Communication is very important. If you do not give communication to the customer, he will not feel safe. Communication, you can have two types of communication. So communication with the risk, which is upper, and also communication which is railway communication for leisure, so that you forget everything. So it is like that, and it is amazing, this picture on the left with some paintings on the floor, and also Trenose for Greek railways, who has given that to me for this meeting. Information of client. So there are a lot of companies who have provide information. You have to provide information, which can be information on public media, which can be information in stations, information in the train, which will be very clear, with pictograms, with short message, with visual communication, and also information for everybody. It is the picture on the right with the Spanish train with deaf people. Digital applications are very important for that, for a lot of things. First is to avoid physical contact, of course, during the check of the ticket, and to when you pay your ticket, contactless payment, to inform the passengers on everything. What is seamless for the passenger, decrease the risk and decrease the feel of insecurity in the train. Information also can be given in the apps. You see here 3 apps from Swiss railways, Japanese railways, and Danish railways here to give how the train will be full. What is the occupancy rate of each coach? So and also there are information concerning, it is not here in this screen, concerning also the occupancy of the railway station. So people can choose. You know, now with the remote working, people can choose their time. They will go to the office and they will also choose the time when the station is less occupied, with less people in the station. So there are apps saying that with sensors in the coaches, or with intelligence, artificial intelligence, concerning the trends and how the trends are full. I said seamless travel. What is important for the passenger is to forget everything. Forget everything. That means the ticketing, for example, has to be integrated ticketing with the same ticket with the plane and train. We are doing that in UIC, with same ticket with train and public transport, with ticket exchange up to last minute. It has been given by ONCF, the Moroccan Railways, the picture below. Proposing marketing new offers to attract the teleworkers. So the teleworkers are very important. There are three types of passengers. There are the teleworkers, there are commuters first. There are people which are going to business and leisure. It is the three things, the three categories of passengers. So to facilitate the customer experience in station, so you can facilitate with a lot of things like station office, like hotel, station desk, connectivity, and so on. Yes, I know I have to go fast now. So there are also, what is important is comfort, accessibility, of course, within the stations. And it is one of the last slides. It is what we have done, and you can take the address of www.uic.org/COVID-19. You will have a lot of documents in 5, 6, 7 languages, from French, Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, Farsi, and other languages for what we have done. And what is important at the end is to grow awareness for leisure, more attractive stations, night trends, and environmental concern. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Impressive how you help railways across the world to exchange and to define best practice measures. Myself, I had the pleasure to experience some of them, and I must say a lot of visibility and transparency has developed. Now I'm handing over to Peter, and it's a specific pleasure for me to come to know Peter, because now I finally know who's managing passenger guidance in Schiphol, which I always consider to be a best practice example how to guide passengers if I compare to different airports that I have known. Peter is not only working with Schiphol, he's also working with a lot of different airports like JFK, Luton, IFC, and others, where to help them to have data-driven insight to plan and optimize their operations and their customer experience, which makes in crowded areas a lot of a difference. He has over 20 years of experience in developing people flow monitoring and analytics solution. And back in 2003, you led the management buyout of Ericsson's Bluetooth division that became the BLIP systems, and then ended up in Veovo, the application that is now helping airports, stations, and other crowded places in this world to manage the passenger flows. Glad to have you here. Looking forward to your presentation to understand what we will do on the next horizon to manage flows. The floor is
hopefully I can fulfill that. Yeah, I don't know if it's me or just I don't have the slide.
Can you pull up the slides for us?
Yeah, just checking with my colleagues. Okay, my colleague's messaging that it's stuck. Let me see if I can. There you go.
Yeah.
The confidence is restored.
Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for spending some time with us today. I'm going to talk a little bit about our experiences and what we think could drive passengers to a quicker return to public transport. Some of my thoughts on this subject was when I saw this graph coming out of New York. We do a lot of stuff in New York, both with the MTA, the PATH trains, and also all of the airports in the New York ecosystem of airports. And when I saw these graphs of sort of the drop of traffic, and then fairly quickly after road traffic here sort of as depicted as bridge and tunnel traffic coming back to normal, but all of the public transports and especially the sort of the metro networks having a lot harder to bounce back. And my thinking was, of course, that maybe many of these passengers, they would actually prefer using their own car, but had previously been using public transport due to the congestion on the roads. But if we're wait sort of for congestion to basically drive or force people back into public transport, I think it's going to take longer than sort of that 1 year that we saw in the previous poll. So yeah, what can we do to make people feel confident and see it as sort of an option far sooner than when we get to sort of a congested situation on the roads. So that was where I started. So when we look at, and here are some considerations, and the first three ones on the top there, that's for the riders, and one of them was sort of, well, is public transport an option? Well, do I even consider it as an option, or do I feel insecure entering? Then next one is, can I plan my journey? I know many of you guys already offer journey planners as part of your tool set to passengers, but and some of them even offer preferences where you can sort of say, I want the fastest ride, or I want the ride with the least transfers between different lines. But maybe this pandemic is also gonna sort of maybe we need to sort of expand on that. Maybe you should be able to also say, I want the least congested route, if that's my preference. So just sort of also to think about that, maybe this will bring on some new preferences when passengers are trying to plan their journey. And then real-time information. We saw a bit on measurements, both from earlier from Madrid, but it is sort of that vital to get sort of up to the second accurate information, and a way to present it to the passengers so that we can guide our passengers. We're basically sort of, because most of you guys, you're running a fairly locked system where what you can change on the day quickly is limited. So actually, maybe one of the easiest things to try and change is the passenger flows, but that demands that you can sort of give them accurate and good information. People are smart, so given the right information, they will make smart decisions. Underneath are then sort of some consideration from you as an operator, and I've already covered some of them, but one that I want to highlight also is that sort of what's the means of communication. We've been working also with mobile channels a lot, but driving and getting more users onto your own applications is hard work, and can be done, but you should really consider what are the channels that your passengers are using today, and then try to get your information onto those channels, even if they include external, such as Google Maps or whatever your passengers are using already. So this is sort of a more or less a timeline that we've been working on with some of the companies that we work with, some of the operators. One of them is aggregating historic data, applying machine learning to that historic data to give load profiles also for the future. And that means that sort of you can then also plan a future travel and then see, okay, maybe I can defer the time I leave a little bit. Maybe there's an event going on that causes me not to take the journey I normally take, but choose another route because there's simply less travelers expected that way. In cities where the metro system is well expanded and has many stations and many lines, there's typically more options between A and B, or maybe even sometimes walking a bit longer to then avoid a congested area. And again, giving the power to the passenger in terms of having the information, they will make intelligent decisions, which in turn will help you have less congestion, less crowding in your stations. Outside the station, we believe that sort of we should try and inform already at the entrance to the station, especially in underground station. You're informing them at the entrance is vital. Many stations underground have a mezzanine layer where the ticketing turnstiles are, and when you stop the passenger there, they've actually already entered the station, and they will then sometimes it will be very difficult to get out again. So you need to address that already at the entrance. Optimization of flows on the station. So in peak hours and when the station reaches a certain limit, you can optimize the flows. You can make the station operate more efficiently by then maybe turning entrances that are both entrances and exits into only entrances and others into only exits, and creating one-way flows instead of cross flows underground. That will hugely improve the flow rates underground. It will make passengers have to sometimes walk a little longer to then get to the entrance, but that's far better to have them do that above ground where there's more room instead of having a congested station with cross flows underground. And again, for your alighting passengers, what exit to take, rather than sort of having them to freely choose between all of the exits. You can on digital displays, you can guide them to the exit that is then optimum in terms of your flows on the station. So that's something that we've seen both in airports and in train stations and other sort of also major sports events. If we can control the flows, there's a big benefit to streamlining and one-waying flows rather than having them bidirectional. So what is it that we can improve by creating a better overview of the current situation? There will always be unplanned issues. We will always have plans that are made and based on normal operations, but operations are not always normal. So a good knowledge about what is going on, and even a few minutes can be vital in the lead time to detect that something is changing. Because in systems that move sometimes millions of passengers, things change very quickly. So being able to detect unplanned issues in real time is vital for solving those issues. Setting up triggers, once you then have the data of all the vital parameters, being able to set up triggers that will then adjust things, alarms, dispatch personnel, or control screens based on these triggers. Automating this will make sort of decisions faster and will make sure that things happen a lot quicker. As I said, direct staff. You can sometimes hold back a train for a few minutes if that will help the situation on the next station. Influence passengers. As I say, passengers are intelligent, so being able to giving them information in hand that they can take action on, our passengers will then make intelligent decisions and try and avoid a situation which is not comfortable to them, and often sort of make it easier for you to improve on the situation. On sort of a longer horizon, all of this data will of course also help you to improve on your stations and your station design on the longer run, because you'll have much better data to enter into flow models, much better knowledge about what the current use is, much better ways to simulate changes. The platform that we use is sense agnostic. We often use technology that's already in place and integrate to that technology. And then if we still have blind angles, we can add sensors, and we have a lot of different types of sensors that we use depending on what the task is. To the right, you can see some of the companies that we work with, and that we're not only train and metro, we are also airports, and we actually also do traffic management. So a very broad understanding of flow management and ways to improve flows and capacity. So what's then the next steps? How do we get started? Well, in our experience, we have to start with sort of honing in on what the most important challenges are. Once we've defined the most important challenges, we will then sort of look at what kind of data will then help you improve on that situation. And after that, we go to the technology. We think that it's very important to make sure that we're addressing the right challenges and that we spend time discussing what will help us solve that challenge before we then go into the technical library of possibilities. Otherwise, sometimes you're locked into technology, but not sort of providing an answer to the real challenge. Then, of course, real-time and accurate data. We know from some of our operators that sort of data that's even sort of maybe 5 minutes old or so are considered useless for them in making decisions. So once we then know the challenge, discussing what's then the demands on accuracy and real time for it to be useful is important, because of course there's a tie between those parameters and both cost and technology that we choose. And then of course we're happy to just also to share our experience. We're happy to sort of connect different customers for sharing of experience, and then use all of the digital channels to engage with the passengers, to tell them what you do, and to empower them to make the right decisions. That's important. Trust your passengers and give them the best possible tools to make good decisions. That's how you get them back as fast as possible. That was it from me. I hope that was useful, and then I'm of course available later on for questions.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Very impressive, especially this use case, which entry to the line I should use, or which station I should use to get the fastest way to the office. It's a question I ask myself every morning here in Paris, and I'm still not sure what the right answer is, and probably it differs each day. So if you've solved that, happy to tell.
Yeah, and what we get today from passengers that we interview is that sort of they use all kinds of, they look at headspace to try and estimate the crowdedness of the trains and if it's running, and then they decide based on that. But once you sort of build that into a model, you could actually automate that for a system to then give recommendations. But you have to really understand the dynamics, and you can only do that by speaking to commuters because they're basically the experts.
Indeed. Let me now present you Frank. Frank is the head of the Bakerloo and Victoria Line operations in London. Frank, could you turn on your camera? This is Jules.
Yes.
Because we have in parallel also a third poll. I almost forgot. Thanks for reminding me. So Jules.
Yes.
First,
let the audience vote while you introduce Frank. If my colleagues could. Yes, thank you. So this is the second of the two polls that we have today. What is for you the most important service quality factor when you travel by rail? So as a passenger, if you imagine yourself as a passenger, which of the five factors here is the most important service quality factor? Time, so the quickest travel option, cost, best value fare, or is it comfort, smoothest journey, is it safety, so safety standards and security, or is it cleanliness and so visible and perceived cleanliness? What is the most important factor for you when choosing to travel by rail? So if you can submit your answer, and while you do that, Carsten, you could introduce Frank.
Yeah, I'll give it another try, and I apologize for not sticking with it. Frank, welcome here. We're looking forward to your presentation. Frank is the head of the Bakerloo and Victoria Line operations for Transport for London. He has worked for over 24 years with leading teams, working with key stakeholders, local government officials, to continually improve operations of the tube, if I may say so, as a non-Londoner. And especially over the last 18 months, he has seen some very high challenges in keeping up service on one of the most occupied lines in Europe, which has not been as easy as it might seem. I'm really looking forward to have you here to tell us about your experience and about the campaign that you're about to start, or that you've started for Transport for London, to get back passenger confidence. Looking forward to this one. Jules, where are we with the polls?
Yes, I think most people have responded. If you haven't responded, if you can cast your final votes. And yes, let's close the poll now, please. And once again, you can all see the results under the polls section. If you go to the closed section, we have a fairly nice split, with the time being slightly ahead of the game, followed by comfort. Carsten and Frank,
yep.
What would you think about this?
Yeah, for the industry, there's, from my perspective, that it's not cost. That gives us a little bit of leeway and freedom to operate going forward, and to help to save on taxpayers' money. But so I voted for comfort, given that it's important to be able to work in parallel, and I'm happy to take 20 minutes more if I can work on that time. I don't know, Frank, what would be your favorite?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So time was always the predominant. Trying to go through London in any other way other than the tube, it takes you so long. Time was always by far the highest, and so it's really interesting to see that comfort is there as well as safety. because safety was taken as a given. It was there, but I suppose COVID has made people think differently in terms of their own safety and their security. So yes, really interesting in terms of that. I would have thought time would have been a lot higher, but given where we are, that's obviously changed people's minds.
Thanks a lot for that comment. So now over to you to tell us how you connect emotionally with your customers to get them back in the tube.
Yeah, so good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Ibe, Head of Line Operations for Transport for London. And just before I go into talking about how we connect emotionally with our customers to really restore back that confidence, just a quick overview of what we do in London Underground. So London Underground, the oldest metro in the world and probably one of the biggest also in the world, but just give a quick review in numbers. So 1,050 kilometers of track, 270 stations, 242 lifts, 448 escalators that are normally around 16 hours continuously, 16,000 bridges that have to be checked on a regular basis. One of our stations, Waterloo, pre-COVID, had 100 million customers in a year. We delivered 86 million kilometers of train travel in 2019. And for those of you that want to look at the maths on that, that's about 115 times from the Earth to the Moon and back, or 2,200 times around the world. We've got 544 trains, and unfortunately it's really complex because we also have 8 different rolling stock, and one of the lines, which is one of my lines actually, the Victoria line, delivers a train every 100 seconds, which just really is a challenge in itself. Overall, in 2019 we had 1.38 billion passengers, all the while we're doing a lot of capex upgrades with new trains, new signalling systems, new access ability, 2 new stations, and of course the Elizabeth line. But never more than now have we started to think about why every journey matters because of COVID. And that's really changed the landscape, because we've really had to do things completely differently in terms of how we manage things, how we work around our customers, the mask wearing, contactless payments for our ticketing, one-way systems throughout most of our large organizations, stations. We've put UV cleaning on our escalators, a really innovative way of just making sure it's demonstrating cleanliness, as well as having the sanitizers all around. But right now, it's really about how do we make sure that we move forward in times of trying to get that recovery. And that recovery is based on a integrated approach, a real integrated approach, focusing on our customers and our passengers. And so we decided to do a huge multi-channel customer information campaign. You heard Peter talked about a number of things that he's talking about around how we can improve customer confidence. But this is really around tapping into that emotional focus on our customers. How do we really get them and reconnect them back to London? So we start off with a huge employee communications and engagement strategy, which we've already got in place. We've got enhanced customer experience, just demonstrating how well we do things to improve that customer experience for our customers. Lots of multimedia, social media focus, using Instagram, Twitter, continuously showing why it's so important to get back to London, get back onto London transport. And this is really important to stop that car-led recovery, which we have seen in other cities. It's really important that we do that. We've also worked really hard with newspapers, TV, other communications, and with our press office, just to make sure that they're tied in with what we're doing. And there's a huge stakeholder involvement with businesses, local businesses, and events that are happening, such as one very big event that's happening this afternoon. But it's really about making sure that also real-time customer information is there, using the apps, using all the technology, while in the background, we've got a huge team looking at travel demand management and seeing where the hotspots are so that we can ping that to our customers so that they can know what time to travel and where to avoid in order to make sure they get a really great experience. So why are we doing this? Well, this is really about trying to make sure that we get back to our original purpose. And our original purpose is really around keeping London moving, working and growing, and making life better in our city. We want to move from where we were in the top right-hand picture to where we had social distancing, very few people on trains, to back to where we were previously. Currently, we've got 55% back, but we're aiming to get to between 75 to 85% back by the end of this year. But we need to do this responsibly. You know, we need to make sure that customers know what we have done to make their journey safe. But at the same time, we're really also focusing on that emotional and engaging campaign around why it's so important. Not just the what, because the what is, it takes us from A to B, but it's the why. Why is it so important that you use public transport and use the tube? And that's really about reconnection. You know, the friends, the family, the restaurants, the theatre, going to the club, you know, the bar, just everything that people remember about what they did and how they did it, utilising public transport. And that's why it becomes really important that we challenge that. But we will do this through excellence for our staff, using technology and data through the apps that we have for our customers, and also demonstrating cleanliness right way across, because that's what we really want to make sure. We want to make sure it's easy for people to navigate across London Underground, also safe and well managed. And that's why we'll be reminding customers of the reasons why this is so important. Engaging with customers through a huge amount of campaigns on the things that we are doing or have done to make it safe for our customers traveling in rail, while at the same time working really closely with businesses to help that demand management. And that travel demand management becomes so key in establishing a new way of operations within London Underground. So just a quick overview of what that is. So London, 32 boroughs, and it was really important that we tapped into each borough so that the local councillors, the local government really understood what we were doing. We got the mayor involved, really promoting the Let's Do London focus. And this was just really aligning with all that customer relation management that we were doing, as well as the tourist board. We had TV ads. We've gone to a really big Time Out magazine where every publication focuses around the good things to do in London, and the best way to do it is via the tube. We've changed some of our signage, our traditional signage, our roundel, to really highlight some of the things that people really liked doing. And that's just, again, tapping into that emotional connection through Twitter and Instagram. For our staff, it was really around focusing on what they do well, that operational excellence, and really promoting it for all our customers. Really around making sure that we took care of our staff so that our staff could take care of the customers in that way. And internally, we were working with our staff to really promote what they're doing so that they felt part of this whole journey, rather than it's just a management or senior management thing. And we produced a video with staff, by staff, with staff involved. And it was really around how we connected with our overall vision. And in terms of partnerships, our partnerships focused a lot around not just the Underground, but around what was happening nationally with the ministers and the government, then regionally around the tourism in the southeast of England, then pan-London, it was around with the Greater London Authority and the works, and then other public transport organisers like the train operation companies, that also the intercity trains that come into London, and then locally, the boroughs, as I mentioned. And that way it was really about making sure that we had a concerted approach that wasn't just focused around us, but as well as the people that were around us, and those partnerships were really important. So we recognized that our commuter base was definitely going to change. We knew that that was going to happen. And so we really needed to try and make sure that, you know, as people started to go to hybrid working, our main commuter base was going to shrink. And so we needed to attract new customers, not just for the sustainability, but also for financial stability within our operation. And so the publication of the price and convenience in all our publications were really, really useful. And we got a huge amount of feedback from this. And you can see by some of the images here that we really focused a lot on trying to get that. And so far, we've seen a huge response. And since we started this campaign, I mentioned that we're at 55 back. Prior to this campaign, which we started in April, you know, we were at 32%. So we believe that the additional 20% was due through this campaign, which is still ongoing. I go back to that emotional connection, and that emotional connection focuses specifically on those things. So really it's around getting ready and what we could do and how we could get people ready. Because success in restoring capacity confidence is really going to be built on action, information, and perceived perception. And this is all about really just making sure that we have set out an aim to communicate a clear vision that translates into relevant actions for our people, our staff, that leads to a great experience for our new and returning customers. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Frank. It's impressive, especially those marketing campaigns that we are ready again. And I think we're, even if we're not ready, we are desiring to be ready. So everyone is waiting for that. Let me open the floor to everyone. Could you switch on your cameras so that we can start the panel? And I would like to start the panel with Mark. First question in your direction, because now we had two examples from Madrid and from London, which are obviously not comparable, but nevertheless 2 European cities. Even if you're not into urban transport, do you see differences in customer expectations and the return of customer confidences across continents from the UIC perspective? Mark, we somehow seem to have a problem with your microphone. Can you verify whether it's off? Oop. No, we don't hear you. Okay, let's maybe Peter, as you are also serving the customers in the United States, we've seen those pictures from New York. Would you say there's a difference, at least between North America and Europe? And if you're inside in other countries, is there a difference across customer expectations?
No, I actually think that sort of major American cities with metro networks are comparable to European cities with metro networks, but there's actually not many cities in the US that have sort of well-developed metro networks. It's only about 10 or so in the US. So, but there I think the behavior is the same. And I think their challenge will be the same in order to get the passengers back. And the graph that I showed there tells the story of the people that are sort of now having to go to work, that there's been a preference to take the car. And as Frank also said, we just need, with information, we need to drive them back into the to the public transport options far quicker than sort of congested roads will do, because that will create all kinds of other problems for the city.
Mark, should we give it another try? It's a pity. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Maybe you can dial in. I think the organizers have provided some dial-in numbers. While we're waiting for this, Juan, we talked before your presentation a bit about expectations, how passengers might return. And there we have also two questions from the audience. Peter is asking, and also Jan, about the nature of travel and business commuters. What's your perspective how traffic will ramp up, and will we see different patterns, and how do you monitor that?
Is that for me or?
No, it's for Juan.
Yes. Can you repeat the question?
So the question is, how do you expect how passengers will return in terms of volume, but also in terms of nature of demand?
Well, passengers are returning. If you see our figures that I showed to you, with bathrooms and with the confidence of our customers, they are returning. We fell down to almost zero, but later we've been growing to 56%. Now we are in 66%. And as I said, I hope we will be at 80% at the end of the year. By the end of the year, you know. Then I think customers are returning. Every measure we've done, masks, cleaning, communication. I think we are restoring their trust. You know. Then the answer to the question is that they are coming back. They are coming back, but it's difficult because a lot of people is working at home. A lot of those people is not working anymore, and these are people who were traveling for their jobs. Then they have to recover their job to be back to our subway, to our transport. You know, then that's why the public transport has to be the effective way of change and change this situation.
Thanks a lot, Juan. Frank, maybe this question also.
Do you hear me?
Now, Mark, we hear you.
Okay, it's okay. So I am back. I'm very sorry, but okay, you can imagine it is not my fault.
No worries, no worries. I'll come back to you within a second. I just wanted to hand the question from the audience about if commuters are coming back and how you're monitoring business travel, also to Frank, who's managing another big network. And where we also had a discussion that certain lines are back and others are still waiting. What's your expectation there? How do you see that?
Yeah, so really good question. So again, we've seen that in the financial areas and the financial districts, some of those that are traditional commuters have not come back, but we have seen a number of social leisure shops increase in terms of their ridership. And as we've said before, the key thing is around how do we stop that car-led recovery, which will be bad news, not just for the city in terms of the environment, but also people mobility. So we are trying to do a lot with businesses, doing about staggering hours, working with them around different times that they can work. We've got a huge construction industry within London, and that has changed our peak. So our peak is now very early in the morning, which in itself has caused its own challenges. And so we've started to work with that construction industry in some locations and some stations to try and balance out that information. And of course, all of that goes back to the travel demand team, who is now working really hard and tirelessly around trying to space out that demand right way across the business.
Thanks a lot. So, Mark, I try again. What's your international perspective on customer expectations? Is there a difference between countries and continents?
Yes, of course. There are big differences. I will give you some examples. You know that the pandemic was very short in China. that the normal situation resumed a lot of months ago, and people do not have the behavior to stay longer in the pandemic, and do not have the the old expectations are now. In Europe, I think everybody knows around us that the vaccinated people are less afraid to take the train, and in other countries like in India and Latin America, they are heavily affected at that. I see in the chat also there is a question coming from Yasunari Nakajima from GR East, a very good friend, and hello Yasunari, thank you to be there. But they are very in advance for what they have done with their customers, with a lot of applications, and it is what he has written here also in the chat. A lot of applications to show the connection of the train, to show the connection in the congestion in stations, and so on.
Thanks a lot. And maybe Peter, you're the right one to ask that question. So part of the question from Yasunari is, what information do you think is effective in getting passengers back? What should they know?
I think many operators are already providing sort of the operational status of their trains, but I think on top of that, we need to provide occupancy of both trains and stations, not only in real time but also predicted for the future, so that they, before they leave or even sort of in advance, can start planning and say, okay, well, how should I do my travel? And the challenge, of course, is that this is complex systems with many dependencies across. So whenever you change something, it's going to affect major parts of the network, because the different lines are interdependent. So yeah, machine learning on historic data and the quick detection of issues is key here in order to give a heads up on anything which is not normal. It's very easy to aggregate what a normal Tuesday is, but what is a normal Tuesday, and is today a normal Tuesday? That's the difficulty.
Thanks a lot. Which maybe leads to Juan. There's a question in the chat from David, which technologies you use in Madrid to track the passengers. There's also a follow-up question about privacy protection. But I think the more important thing, what I also found very impressive, is how do you identify when a platform is full? How do you identify when a train is full? And how do you get that all together to inform people?
Well, Carsten, in Madrid, we do not track passengers. We monitor passengers' flows and train density. We have been proposed technologies for tracking passengers, but we were not comfortable using them out of concerns with privacy protection. All developments we were engineering in-house and implemented utilizing as inputs in information from turnstile entrance and historic data to using big data technology, model flow models within our network. Thanks a lot. So that's also how I understood it, that you basically, track, quote unquote, you don't track the individual, but you monitor what's happening in the public spaces. Yeah. That's right.
Frank, maybe if we go back to that situation of the most busiest metro in Europe, how do you make sure with those intervals of 100 seconds that keeps running? You have zero error margin to provide those trains, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a bit of a challenge in terms of the Victoria line to deliver that. You look at it completely holistically. You're looking at what's the customer behavior. You're looking at the train throughput. You're looking at the station capacity, how quickly you can get customers onto the train and off the train. And you're looking at, from the control room, all the things that could go wrong, and really making sure that you've got a lot of data around, not just predictive data on the train, but also around how quickly we can fix it. Because a small delay has a big knock-on effect. And so little things like mobile phones, people dropping mobile phones on the track, really quickly, how our staff can deal with that, because phones are not cheap now. No one wants to leave their phone, but equally you don't want anyone going down to pick up your phone. So we've devised huge amounts of scenarios, and we treat every day and every peak as an event. So quickly, something like that will be addressed within seconds by the staff and the team. So it's all a holistic approach to looking at that. Excellence in operations, maximizing technology, delivering on our plan, developing our people, and safety and security. That makes it work.
Thank you, Frank. Then there's a comment from Tony and Mark. I would like to forward that to you, because you also are responsible for train tourism. And Tony proposes to merge more the ticketing for events in public transport. Could travel, so the more broader sense, be a way to get people back on the train, to link that? How do you see that, Mark?
Concerning tourism, concerning ticketing, you said?
Tourism, big events. So basically they say, I link more the train ticket to my holidays, to the Olympic Games, to whatever.
Okay. So maybe you do not know, but we have a memorandum of understanding with IATA, the airlines industry, and also with UITP, in order to develop integrated ticketing between rail and public transport, in order to have integrated ticket with only one ticket, one barcode with the train and the public transport, which can be also urban transport. We are developing that now in UIC, and I'm sure we will have that in around 2 years.
Oh, interesting. We're looking forward to that. Peter, I was wondering when I have been seeing your solution and how you manage flows. There are certain areas, and I mean, you take your experience from airports or from stations, where we today have already huge capacity problems, where stations are packed. How would you address that situation? How much can data help there to ease peak times? And when will we really need to expand airports, but also stations?
Yeah, that is interesting. In airports, sort of going to an airport conference and going into a track about expanding capacity some years ago, that would have been just like attending a building meeting for them building new terminals. But now most airports has been caught up by the city, and of course most train stations are already in the center of the city. So, and you can't just demolish a station and then build a new one. You'll have to sort of keep operating while building. So whenever you can sort of avoid building but getting more capacity of what you already have, there's a huge economic benefit, and also a huge sort of save of lead time in getting that. And what we often see is that sort of one thing is a bi-directional flow, or sort of where you have passengers going both ways in a narrow walkway. Even worse is cross flows, where different flows have to cross each other. It's a very big issue, and it's a very big limiting factor in terms of how many people you can flow within a certain square footage. In train stations, most of the day that's not a problem, but in peaks, there's a really big gain if we can identify these flows and then look at the start and entrance points, and then maybe shift, as I said, some of the entrance exits to being either only entrances or only exits, or some of the walkways to be only one way, and you could have an overbridge being for getting passengers out, and then using a tunnel to get passengers in, and so looking at flow patterns like that, especially for peak hours, can improve the flows in the train stations a lot. It of course then requires either staff on the ground to direct people, or at least dynamic signs that we can that we can change when needed, and you can, if you have sort of accurate data, you can use the data as triggers to when to evoke different flow patterns.
Thanks a lot. Maybe one final question to all of you, and Juan, maybe you start answering. It's not our profession and our expertise, but it has been voted highly in the chat. What's your perspective on vaccinations? Will they play a major role going forward? And how do you see that, given that we somehow all arrive at a certain glass ceiling? Will that help us get confidence back? And maybe Juan, you first, and then Mark, Frank, Peter, and we try to close the round with reading a bit the crystal ball. Juan.
Well, I don't think so. I'm sure I don't trust in, and I think it's not what we have to do. No.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
Yes, vaccinations are two roles. The first one is to decrease the pandemic. So if you decrease the pandemic, there will be lower risk, and so you can communicate on the lower risk to take the train, and then you can increase the passenger, the confidence of the passenger. It is the first one, and the second one is for the people themselves. So people which are vaccinated said maybe they can think they are Superman. I don't know if it is the right word, saying, okay, now I'm protected, so I don't care about anything else. So it is not true. What I said, we have to be careful on that, but some people can think also about that to increase their confidence. But the first role of vaccination is to protect yourself, to protect the others, and to decrease the pandemic all around the world.
Frank, would you have a perspective on vaccination?
Yeah, I suppose it's all about risk mitigation, isn't it? It's not just one thing. It's everything that you put together around risk mitigation, not just for the customers, but for our staff. And if I just think back today, 16 years ago today, 2005, we had that horrific terrorist attack in London. And it took us 18 months to get that confidence back. And it was all the different things that we were doing. It was the publication around security. It was the things around how well the service is running. It was really about the consistent approach, making people feel safe, both our staff and our customers. So I think it goes back to that risk mitigation and making sure that along with the vaccine, that we're really promoting that it's a safe and really good way to travel in London.
Peter.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's for on a personal level, it helps restore confidence. We can't always, no matter how much we improve, we can't always make sure that people can keep their social distance in these transport systems. So it is going to play a vital role in that confidence about going into a metro system and the train. It will play a role.
Thanks a lot to all of you. It was a pleasure to have the discussion. I learned a lot. I hope our audience too. And now I can hand over to Jules to close the session. Maybe with one final word. I'm pretty confident. We have a lot of great people working on those systems, and our societies will rely on that. So I think people will come back, and we will all enjoy riding with the train and the metro going forward. Jules.
Thank you, Carsten. To finish on a cautiously optimistic note, let's say, as the vaccination drives continue in Europe and elsewhere in the world. Thank you for this very insightful discussion today. I think we've all learned a lot, and it's comforting to learn from a passenger point of view. It's comforting to learn that a lot of the measures are in place and being planned as well. And let's hope that the day will come that we can or get on the metro and other trains and other public transport with full confidence and so on. Thank you for the debate today, and thank you for moderating quite succinctly this session, Carsten. I wanted to just bring the audience attention to the summit that we will be hosting next February. So with a bit of, well, with a lot of fingers being crossed at the moment, we're hoping to go back to a physical event next February in Berlin. Next February 15th or 17th in next year. So this is the annual summit that we've been organizing with the support from UIC, International Union Railways. And next event will be on a big overall theme will be on innovating rail for people, planet, and prosperity. So we are announcing this tomorrow officially, but with a bit of a prior announcement for those of you attending this webinar today. So we're talking about sustainability in 3 different types of sustainability: the social, environmental, and economic sustainability, and what can rail do for these types of sustainability. And we'll be gathering in Berlin, hopefully in person, to discuss this topic over 2.5 days. And we'll be talking to, we'll be announcing some of the initial set of speakers this week, but this will be the topic. So do keep the dates on your diary. And if you like to find out more, do get in touch with us. So yeah, thank you for today's, thank you for watching today's webinar, and thank you to our speakers, Juan Tebar, Mark Gigon, Peter Knudsen, Frank Eid, and of course, the moderator, Dr. Carsten Lotz. So I hope you can join us at future webinars. So this is the last of the webinar before the summer break, but we have 7 or so webinars, I think, planned for September onwards, between September and October. So we look forward to seeing you again in September. So thank you to the audience, thank you to the speakers, and until we see again, I hope to see you soon on this platform once again. Thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Jules.
Yeah. Bye.